Welcome, everyone. My name is Suzanne. I'm co-founder and head of carer support at Mobilise. But probably more importantly, I'm also caring for my husband, Matt, who was diagnosed with young onset Parkinson's disease at the age of 31. So here we go, benefits and savings. By the end of the event, my hope is that everyone will have a basic understanding of the main benefits, know where to go to get more detail. Plus, we'll learn together how we can overcome barriers to applying successfully. We'll look a little bit more broadly also at other potential savings and discounts to explore. So that's where you guys at home, love you to put that in the chat, things that you found that have helped, little things that are worth looking up, etc. Other recommendations from other carers is always the real gold dust there. And speaking of other carers, I'm going to have my guests here on screen with me. Kevin, Carol and Awais are joining me from our community. Awais, as well as being a member of the community, is also a member of the team here at Mobilise as well, but he's got great experience as a carer to share too. But thank you particularly, Kevin and Carol, for joining us today. I think most people are pretty clued up on this already, but just a quick look at what the key benefits are for the person you care for. And I've just listed the kind of three age groups here that are most relevant. So under 16, DLA or disability living allowance, and in Scotland it's called the child disability payment. 16 and up to state pension age, PIP, personal independence payment, or adult disability payment if you're in Scotland. And then over state pension age, it's attendance allowance, and it's the same in Scotland. Just a note there, quite often people get a bit confused with this one. If you're already on PIP before you reach pension age, and depending on your situation, you then would normally stay on PIP, but you can't also receive attendance allowance as well as PIP. Sorry about that. Sometimes some people think, oh, it's another thing, that they hadn't heard of when they reach pension age, but sadly it's PIP or attendance allowance, not both, but it's good to just be aware of that. And let's quickly cover off carers allowance, just the facts and figures there. So, it's not a huge amount, £76.75 a week, but every little helps, as Tesco likes to say. The four main criteria there is the person that you're caring for needs to claim an eligible benefit, like the ones that we explained, but there are other ones, sort of severe disability and military ones, etc., relevant too. Caring regularly for over 35 hours a week, but don't forget to include the shopping, the emotional support, the travel, etc. And earning under £139 a week. There are some expenses that you can deduct, and pension, 50% of your pension payment and things like that. So if you're around, if you've just gone over, don't give up. It's worth checking into what the allowable expenses are, and not in full-time education, which is a course that's over 21 hours. But let's come back to our guests. I'd really love to hear kind of what benefits have been relevant for you. How did application go? Just give us a quick overview of how that's gone.
Well, what I've found most important, especially when it comes to filling in application forms, is let the experts help you, because they will know more and can offer more guidance so that you can complete your forms correctly and in as much detail, and then hopefully with a bit of luck everything will be smoothly for you, so that you don't have to worry about having to reapply again because you may have forgotten information, which you may not have time really to sit and think of everything, but being prompted by somebody else will be a lifesaver during the claiming of benefits process.
Yeah, really. But that was PIP, wasn't it? You claimed on behalf of your wife. And yeah, you also had the situation you were thinking about, which people often ask around carers allowance and universal credit. What did you discover there? Because you had a benefits expert helped you and you got to a really good answer on that one.
Yes, because my wife gets PIP, with our circumstances, we're gaining the capacity for work benefit for universal credit, and we're also on the maximum universal credit. Now, when I looked into fine detail about carers allowance, you sit and weigh everything up, and then you think, do I need to apply for carers allowance or do I not? If you're claiming universal credit, your national insurance contribution, I assume within the UK, you would get class 3 payments. But if you claim the carers allowance, okay, you don't make any financial gain because what's given in one hand is taken away from the other hand. But with the carers allowance element, you will actually get paid class 1 national insurance, which would be the maximum allowance for what you'll be getting within your caring role.
Mm-hmm. So although you're not financially better off in the immediate term, in the long term, that's really protecting your state pension, which is something that carers often kind of forget and end up with that double whammy of financial hit with having a reduced pension. So excellent to know how that all comes together with a real life scenario, Kevin. Thank you. Awais, what about you? You applied for DLA eventually, didn't you?
Yeah, so my son suffered his stroke last year in May, just before his birthday. And at the time, we didn't expect, we didn't realize a child could have a stroke. So it kind of really threw us off the track in terms of where we were going with him and how well he was developing. So the first thing you do is you turn to those around you and ask them for advice. And I was told at the time that I wouldn't be entitled to anything like DLA or anything like that. So I just completely brushed it off. And I was working in the prison service at the time. Was doing extra hours, literally putting my life on risk many of the times in the situations I was in, just to earn a bit extra so we could put that towards rehabilitating my son, as he had lost all movement down one side of his body. So it was quite a stressful year. And then come to the start of this year, we had a meeting with the doctors and they discussed about him going into nursery. And when I contacted the nurseries, they asked for a code for the 2-year funding. And that's when I realized that we need this code, we need DLA, and to get DLA, we'd have to actually go and apply for it. That's when I actually started asking questions and found out that we are entitled. It's not means tested. It's down to the health of the child. So it was a bit of a rush filling out the paperwork and getting it sent off. And like Kevin said, it is good to have the experts help you to do it. I'd say condition-specific registered charities, they're quite a good place to turn to. So we were registered with Shine Charity and Harry's Hat. They're two of the charities that deal with hydrocephalus in particular. I personally didn't use them, but I know a lot of other parents that I speak to who did. But because I'd left it so late and we were rushing through the paperwork, I had to do it myself. We were given the lower rate to begin with, which I then had to challenge and get a mandatory review done. And then we were awarded the higher rate. And it's made a massive difference to our lives because we spent a lot on adaptation. So my son needed a whole new wheelchair, a car seat that swivels around when getting him out of the car, and they were quite costly. Some of the charities actually even do grants that can help you as well. And so if you write to them, a lot of them actually contact you as well, but you can also write to them and they can redirect you to where you can get a grant or some funding towards the adaptations that you need to make for a child as well. And we had that for one of the prams that we bought him, and it was actually really helpful.
Yeah, lovely. And I've just spotted, that question come up. Loads of good stuff in the chat, but I spotted that question there, that who can help you? So condition-specific charities. Kevin, who helped you with all the benefit forms and things?
Well, first I went to Citizens Advice and talked to them about it. And if you live in Wiltshire, excluding Swindon, the council will fund a section of Citizens Advice, which would be known as the Carers Project. And with the Carers Project, because the woman knew all the medical conditions and everything else, they basically filled in the forms at their end, obviously having the discussion with me. And then once the paperwork was emailed back to me, I could just then submit it because all the information that was needed is all there. But even if you're somebody that's maybe well off education-wise, you may not realise stuff that you should be putting, which you take for granted every day, that you're just basically not putting down, because obviously you're in a set routine. And as somebody just said in the group chat, you've got to look everything negatively in the worst case scenario. But at the end of the day, you will get a positive outcome, which will better help you to get through the processes and everything else that you need.
Yeah, really good advice. Get all the help you can. Citizens Advice, charities, things like Age UK can help. Some Age UKs support people of all ages. Don't just assume they're only for older people. And your local council and your local carer support organisation as well are all places to check out. It's a little bit different in every area sometimes, but worth checking out what the options are to get that support to fill it in. The paperwork is complicated, but someone just asking the right questions and knowing how to put things across can really make a big difference there. Looks like we've lost Carol. Hopefully she'll be back. What I'll do, I'll move on to the next bit and hopefully we'll scoop up Carol's experience as well. But just thinking really about the emotional barriers to filling out forms. There can be lots of different reasons why we kind of may struggle with it. We may just be busy, we may not know where to start, we may be overwhelmed, not know where to get help, don't think we qualify, or just maybe the person we care for doesn't want benefits and that's stopping us sorting out our financial situation. Or maybe there's a kind of a reluctance on our own part just to accept that actually we do deserve some support. You know, we are entitled to support, and this is what the benefit system is for, to support people in these kind of situations. And it can be quite hard to sort of make that step when we never thought we'd end up in this situation. Welcome back, Carol. Let me just come to you. What's your situation regarding benefits? What's been helpful for you?
My sister did the attendance allowance application for my dad 18 months ago. I then started one for my mum, and it's 30 pages long. It's very involved, very detailed. I'd recommend you do it in chunks, and always, as I think someone said in the chat, write it as if it was on the worst day. That's good advice. So I found that I needed help to do that. My sister and I worked it out between us, but it did take a long time. But don't give up, and take it to Citizen Advice Bureau maybe, or if you've got a local carers association. Mum's application was turned down first of all, and she said, well, okay, well, we tried, but I don't take no for an answer. So I immediately rang up and said, we think she is entitled. And having spoken to the lady, she said, oh, yes, you can have it, because it's not easy to get a feel for somebody's situation on the paper. It's easy on the phone. So if you do get refused first time, which is quite common, don't take it as read. Always appeal or ask for it to be reconsidered. My carers allowance application was really, really easy. I was very lucky. I asked for it to be backdated for 6 months because the situation at home was just so difficult. I just didn't have the time, and I didn't really know what to do. And I had the backdated money in my account and agreement within 10 days of applying. So that was really, really positive for me.
Fantastic. Right. So thinking about those barriers, so anything from our lovely panel here where we kind of feel we've overcome some of the barriers that we've had? Any thoughts there? Awais, what about you?
For me, I think there's a stigma attached to claiming benefits that you hear a lot outside in the world. And I think people don't really understand, as genuine carers, how difficult it is, and financially with the cost of living going up as well. For me, the main barriers were, number one was when you fill out the application form, like a lot of people have said, you have to write the worst day, and the worst, the worst of the worst, basically. And when it comes to your child, you feel very guilty doing that because you feel like you're putting your child down. So that was one. And the second one was this guilt that I don't know whether I absorbed it from the people around me, that I'm somehow capitalizing on my child's health and condition. And, I had to take that out of my mind and realize, no, I'm putting this money towards him to better his future, to better his health. This is for him. And, we will see the benefits of it in the future. And it's a lot of it was reframing my mindset and trying to overcome that. And seeing the massive improvements that he's made since, we've had that extra money to help support him. Because before that, when we were relying on my income, there was a lot of things which we wanted to do with him, but we had to be like, okay, we can't budget that this month, we'll have to try next month. Whereas now we don't have that. Now if there's something we know that he needs this, a certain adaptation, he has to wear some really thick shoes, and at the age he is, he's going through them quite quick. So we have to constantly get new ones, and we can make those little expenditures now that we've got that as well. So now that I've seen that benefit, that thought has gone and left my mind now. I don't worry.
And when you know that what you're spending the money on is stuff you wouldn't need to spend the money on unless they have that disability or that situation. And Carol, how were your parents around the idea of you and your sister getting benefits for them?
They were okay, actually, which was lucky, because I do know of friends who have had proud parents who didn't want to access a benefit system. I think it's sort of the older generation mainly, but my parents were quite amenable to it, and they both agreed with everything that I did. I've heard of cases where one parent wants one thing and one parent wants another thing, which is really, really difficult. They were fine about it. Similar to when I was filling it in, I did feel a little bit, I didn't want mum to see it, because you know, I was writing things that, you know, I could see the look on her face. I had to
Yeah.
explain to her that it's going to be the worst day. I got quite overwhelmed with the form filling and benefit applications in general. And I think if English wasn't my first language, I would really struggle. I have some sort of health needs as well, so that didn't help. That was a barrier, but I sort of overcame that by joining carers associations and getting help and support and counselling, because you have to be really strong when you make a benefits application. I did council tax. Well, it's not fully funded now. I think I get 80% off council tax support, they call it. But that process was really difficult because I felt I was being treated really unfairly. I was being judged. I was asked the same questions over and over again. I was asked, you know, why I hadn't done it sooner. And when I explained the situation with caring, I was told that, you know, being stressed out and busy all day with caring responsibilities wasn't a good enough excuse for not applying sooner. So I lost money there. I had to keep my temper a lot with, you know, sometimes I wrote an email back and then I had to delete it. I had to get that emotion out and then I had to delete it and write a more polite email back, because I just found their questions so intrusive and so insulting.
Yeah.
You have to be strong, but, you know, keep at it, get someone else to help you and try and keep your temper.
That's so important to have that other support around you, isn't it? Whether it's counselling or other support to kind of, not just the technical support and how to fill out the form, but recognising this is tough. This is probably you having to face up to your caring role, the person you love having to face up to their loss of independence. I remember picking out of my mother-in-law, trying to fill out her attendance allowance form about falls, and I knew she'd fallen over several times because I'd seen the bruises. Oh, one fall and one stumble, she said. I'm like, well, hang on, this doctor mentioned another fall. Let's just add them all up. Surprisingly, with her, it was her hearing loss that we'd forgot, that we take for granted. We've always helped her with her hearing. We've been to meetings with her and things. And suddenly we realised, oh, this is something else we need to put down, as well as her mobility issues. So that made a big difference too. Kevin, how was it for you? You had to give up work. How was all of that for you emotionally?
Physically draining. Luckily, I was lucky enough to come across Mobilise. So I had time of an evening where I could sit and read up on everything. And at the end of the day, it's helping me to be a better person now than I was. And as somebody has just posted, Julia, saying about carers allowance, you are correct, you won't be better off. But if you're under state pension age and you're not working, I would say go ahead and do it, because it will increase your national insurance contributions to the maximum level. So in years to come, you will have a better state pension now than if you don't apply for carers allowance. People are put off by it. Okay, you don't make any financial gain because what you get for carers allowance is taken off of universal credit. But in years to come, your national insurance is important, which will help with your pension for when you retire.
Definitely. And the other one to look at is carers credit as well, if you don't quite qualify for carers allowance. So maybe the person you care for hasn't signed up for a benefit because they didn't want to or aren't eligible. Carers credit could be helpful too. Carol?
I had to give up work as well 6 months ago, and I don't qualify for universal credit because I have maintenance from my ex-husband, which just puts me over the limit. So that's financially been very draining, because getting universal credit is the gateway to many other help with cost of living, that sort of thing. So I rely on my family and what savings I did have, which are now gone. You know, they support me basically. So that's financially, it's very difficult.
It is tough. For those that are looking at carers credit, it's caring for 20 hours or more a week. And the person you care for, you can fill out a care certificate, which the GP might help you with, to explain their care needs if they're not qualifying particular benefit. And so that can, do the same. Won't give you any income, but again, those national insurance contributions that you definitely don't want to miss out on. And carers credit, you can backdate to the last tax year as well. So if you've got gaps in your national insurance, you might want to look into carers credit. So lots more information. Now, before I get into sort of too many facts and figures over different benefits, has anybody perhaps in the audience used our financial toolkit? So it's like a checker that you just put in a few bits of information about your situation, and then it will give you a follow-up email with the kind of main benefits and next steps to take relevant to you. and then another email that will then follow up around kind of other discounts and savings and other things to look at as well as the benefits. So if you've not used that yet and you just want to double check you've got everything, that financial toolkit will send you an email with a link to it afterwards, but that's super helpful. Let's dive into some Q&A, I think. Let's make sure we get answering some questions here. Okay, now, Joe, is there a particular question I need to look at?
Hi, Suzanne. Yeah, there's two that I'm going to summarize. So, I mean, the major theme is about the interplay between working and caring and the finances. Asks basically, it says that she doesn't get the housing component of universal credit as she lives with family. As an unpaid carer and providing her accommodation, it feels there's no support for financial help for family members providing unpaid care, housing for a sibling. So it's quite a complex situation. And she works full-time from home. So yeah, she's between a stage where she's probably providing a huge amount of care and support, but working and wondering what she can access really that might help her.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? When you're living with family, but it's not like she's living with her parents. It's, you know, that's a different situation where you've kindly taken in, you know, you're supporting your sister. I don't have a specific answer for that, but my guess would be to really make sure that you've ticked off every route that you can with the local council, that they're fully up to date with all the changes, your local carers association. And it's things like also maybe looking for those other benefits and other kind of things like a cost of living payment, which may be relevant for certain people on universal credit and other low income, household support fund. Check with your local council to see what they're doing there. And I guess where you're struggling to afford your mortgage, that, you know, that debt advice is that conversation with your mortgage company to let them know the situation, and a financial advisor, if there's a mortgage involved there, a financial advisor may be able to make recommendations as well. And if debt is an issue, organizations like CAP and Step Change, you know, it's one of those things that it can feel impossible, but when you talk to someone about it, there may be solutions out there that aren't widely known, but those experts may be able to help. So it's really follow that up with some expertise. But thank you. Anybody from our panel, any answer on that, or anything on there with?
Add on that one, Suzanne, that useful, because it sounds like you've got family there, to consider this as a whole unit rather than just perhaps your own finances. Make sure that every single person within that unit is getting as much as they can, because, you know, the sum of that can all really help to contribute to your all costs. So good luck with it.
And that decision around working and caring as well, maybe we'll scoop in that other question. Working carer, have reduced my hours, will probably need to give up work sometime soon. So on that cusp of thinking about the decision and what the finances will look like. So right to stop and think. Well, I sounded like Martin Lewis there, didn't I? But worrying how that's going to affect a pension, as they won't be employed. Are there any pension benefits for carers in this situation? So if you end up on a low state pension, there can be pension credit. And obviously things like carers credits will top up your national insurance for your state pension. But yes, a different situation with if you had an employer's pension as well. That's an important factor to think about if you need to stop working, and whether it's possible to work part-time and claim carers allowance. And if you're paying into your pension, 50% of that comes off of your earnings to increase the amount you can earn. Any thoughts on those two from our panel?
I've been looking for part-time work since I've been claiming carers allowance. As you have to sign up for 35 hours a week. I think it's the maximum you can earn per week is £139,
Right.
which works out, I think, 13 hours at minimum wage, so just under sort of 2 days a week. But I find it really, really hard to get a job for 1 day a week or 2 days a week. So that's an additional worry, but you are allowed to do that also, because we wouldn't be paying any tax or national insurance, because the limits would be under. So it is a minefield, and you do have to just sort of do your research and ask people for help. And as Suzanne says, just make sure you've ticked everything off your list and you applied for everything. And if you do get turned down, just appeal and keep going.
And it is keep pushing those doors. I think with working, speak to your employer. What's available? Will they offer carers leave? Will they offer a sabbatical to keep your job so you can return to it? And probably speak to a financial advisor. A later life financial advisor can also be helpful to help you plan how that's going to look for your pension. there may not be many choices for you. I recognise that we don't have the luxury of lots of choices, but always good to look at those choices before making a decision to understand the long-term impact as well. Thank you. And where can we go to get individual one-on-one advice for benefit entitlement? So let's do a quick round of that. Kevin, where would you recommend?
Personally, I would use Citizens Advice because their support network is very good. And if you're already claiming certain benefits, for example, if you're claiming council tax benefit, you can talk to them and they can also point you in the right direction to help you get things sorted out.
Yeah, that's it. With grants and council services and things like that, council tax discounts. Carol, did you find an organisation that was helpful near you for your parents' situation?
Yes, I am a member of Involve Kent, which is my area's carers association, and I found them a great support. Yourselves, of course, also Bromley Well, because my parents live in a different borough to me. Sorry, the dog's barking. Also, these later life advisors, which you've already talked about. Yeah, Society of Later Life Advisors. And there was another one, Symponia, who also will give financial advice. Some of it's you pay for.
Your local carers organisation, they will also know that if they don't provide benefit support, they will know who does in your local area. Away, who did you turn to for support around benefits?
It was condition-specific charities. For us, it was Shine and Harry's Hat. Shine, I can't access them for a lot of different things. Since I've joined Mobilise, I get a lot of my information from Mobilise, and I wish I'd come across Mobilise before. Like Kevin mentioned, Citizen Advice, I think they're great to go to.
Yeah, brilliant. And I found, our situation was quite straightforward. We were just applying for PIP and attendance allowance for our husband and mother-in-law. And we found Parkinson's UK, actually, they have benefits advisors. They also have sheets on, they're really specific to that condition, to how do you explain how that condition shows up in real life. It is really helpful to be able to fill those forms in well. So fantastic. Thank you very much for those questions. But let's have one final word from our guest today. What's your top tip or the one thing you want to pass on to our audience today? Let me start with Kevin.
All I can say is I've put in a top 10 list, which obviously is in the dementia category, but it's basically to share everything that I've learned and things that will help you going forward.
Absolutely, it's brilliant. We'll put that in the Mobilise hub. Fabulous, Kevin. Carol, what would you say?
Don't give up. Don't take no for an answer. Question everything. Think of any possible scenarios, even if you think they're ridiculous. Just research it. It's hard, but just keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of those, like in different areas, I'm noticing in the chat, CAB don't help everybody with individual. They might point you somewhere else. It might be turned to us. So I appreciate that it's not always as simple as you just book an appointment. And Wace, what about you? What would you say?
One I'd wish I'd thought of before for myself is always get a second opinion, if not get a third opinion, because obviously it does change your life. That extra money, the benefit that you get. For us, Blue Badge, for example, my son's always in and out of hospital. It's £9 for the day ticket in our hospital car park, and with the Blue Badge, that's wiped off and you get free parking. It all adds up. So always get a second opinion, third opinion until you're happy and you've got the right answer.
That's it, absolutely. Sharing experiences in the community is quite good. People say, my situation's a bit like yours and this is what I did. Sometimes that's how we work through it. It's not always really clear and step by step. And my advice when it gets overwhelming is just do one thing at a time. Focus on one thing. What's the first thing you need to do? Get that done. Then focus on the next thing. It's a marathon, not a sprint, this caring journey sometimes. So worth looking at. But there's probably 1,001 more things we could say as well. But big thank you to our guests. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for the time and the experience that you've shared. I appreciate not everybody wants to be on screen talking about such situations as caring and benefits. So really grateful for you guys. Now it's over to you guys, the audience. What are you going to do next? Now it's great. We attend these kind of events. We learn a bit. I'm sure half of you have been trying to do something else at the same time as well. We absolutely get that. But do think about, as a result of being here with us today, what's next? Is there something to try? Do you need to book an appointment with somebody? Do you need to have a conversation with someone in your family? My example was my mother-in-law didn't want to apply for attendance allowance, and we weren't going to push her because we weren't sure whether she'd be eligible actually. But she went to a Parkinson's cafe for the first time. While I was getting the coffee, somebody grabbed her and said, you need to apply for attendance allowance. They've all got it. You need to get it too. And she said, oh, can I apply for attendance allowance? And someone else of her generation that was like her said it was a good idea. It wasn't just coming from me. And that's what moved her forward with being willing to apply. So, you know, bringing other people into the conversation can sometimes help. So think about what's your next step? What do you need to do next? And if you get stuck, just keep persevering, but one thing at a time. Don't get overwhelmed with it. So I'd love you to have a think about that. Join the conversation in the Mobilise Hub. Underneath where the live events were, there's another sort of chat section. You can come in there, share your thoughts, ask questions, share your wonderful advice that you've shared there as well. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you, everybody. Thanks to our guests, and a huge thank you to you, the audience who've joined and made that such a Mobilise style of an event that we're all chatting together. And that's what it's all about. Take care.